How dare you? How bloody dare you say that when 636 British military personnel lost their lives in wars alongside your military personnel in Iraq and Afghanistan? Many more were injured. Some are probably still bearing the emotional scars to this day, and they're not even come to terms with them yet. How dare you say that to what's supposedly your closest ally? I thought we'd seen some dumb US vice presidents. It was famously said of Gerald Ford he couldn't walk and chew gum at the same time. Remember that one? Dan Quayle was mocked for not being able to spell potato. But by God, they've scraped the bottom of the barrel with this one, haven't they? Can you get any lower than JD Vance? Even Spyro T. Agnew, look it up in history books, will not be mocked like this clown. Although he's not a clown, because clowns are funny. This guy's just plain dumb. Or in language you would understand, Mr. Vice President, you're a dumb ass, you're disrespectful, you're insulting, and I'd love to see you say any of that to the families of the number again, 636 people who never returned because they did get involved in some kind of conflict alongside your folks. Maybe you want to think on that. Now, in a grovelling attempt to try and claw back the ground, JD Vance has put this on social media. I didn't even mention the UK or France in the clip, both of whom have fought bravely alongside the US over the last 20 years and beyond.
I would say this to the Vice President. The British Armed Forces as a whole have had an amazing and mutually respectful relationship with the American Armed Forces throughout history. And the reason being is when we join the military, we're taught the three top qualities that you should hold dear to your heart, and that is courage, moral courage and physical, compassion, and selflessness. And some of those politicians couldn't spell selflessness, and they just lack complete and utter class. So I think if I know the British soldier the way that I do, if he was stood in front of JD Vance and he said that to him, he'd look at him, smile, blow him a kiss and walk away. And that would turn him white.
How concerned should we be? We're talking about a president who narrowly dodged assassination prior to the election. There was reportedly another attempt of sorts in that weapons were found close to where he was. This man, we could be a heartbeat away from Vance being the president.
No, we could be, and we have to respect the office. But I have great, great faith in our military leaders, the American military leaders, and they're just going to have to stand up, I'm afraid, to the politicians and make their point. And it's no point, generals, admirals, whatever, leaving and then complaining about what they did or didn't have. They've got to fight for what our troops here, and around the world, what we need. We need investment. We need recruiting offices open. Yep. We need recruiting sergeants back out in the estates of South London saying, don't go down that road, son. Come and join us.
Why do you keep saying that JD Vance has picked out the British Army as this bad thing? When has he mentioned the British
Well, he didn't.
Army?
Well, that's it. Are you buying his excuse, Paul?
No, I'm not buying anything. I'm just asking you a question. When did he mention the British Army?
He doesn't. He doesn't.
No,
that's his excuse. He doesn't mention. He doesn't mention the British Army, but he talks about how they've not been involved in some forgotten countries. I'm just trying to get the exact quote, which I won't come up to, please. But you know precisely the point he's trying to make. Where is that damn newspaper, for the love of God? You know exactly the point he's trying to make. And I mean, respectfully, everybody else gets it.
But he still hasn't mentioned
a random country that hasn't fought. Sorry.
Here you are, keep constantly berating that man when he hasn't mentioned the British Army by name.
No, he talks of a random country that hasn't fought a war in 30 or 40 years. He hopefully, as Vice President, he should be aware that the peacekeeping force that would be deployed in Ukraine will comprise British, French, and I'm sure troops from elsewhere, probably Germany. And the British and the French, and indeed the Germans, have been alongside the Americans in many conflicts, with hardly some forgotten countries.
word random. He still hasn't mentioned.
No, I know you're doing this, Paul. All right,
Anybody's
let's
forces.
do it your way. Let's do it your way, mate.
Anybody's forces by name.
Right. We'll do it your way. He's an absolute genius, and the fact that he's ignored the lives of 636 military personnel, some of whom perhaps you served alongside, we shouldn't give a damn about. Should we do it that way?
It's nothing to do with that.
Right, you dance on the head of a pin. You do that. You
making-
ignore the families of 636 people who died, countless hundreds who were injured, people who are still coming to terms with the emotional scars, and you continue to defend
in
this.
your bonnet.
Pardon?
You have some bee in your bonnet. Oh, you have a bee in your bonnet.
I don't have a bee in my bonnet. I don't like the. I don't like the
over
memory.
the American administration.
Paul,
but if JD Vance was to turn around and
turn round. You've got to turn round now. Go on.
If JD Vance was to turn around and phone up LBC today and turn around and say, I would like to do an interview with one of your presenters. So why would you relish the opportunity?
Because I would like to challenge him over this.
But you can't stand the man.
How do you... What? I can't stand his view there. I don't know enough about the man. I can't stand his views.
Yeah, but the way you keep going on is the way you keep speaking about the man is that you can't stand him, like you can't stand President Trump. When all President Trump is trying to do is trying to bring peace to the world.
That is not true about...
Causing more problems.
Paul, that is not true about President Trump.
It's absolutely true.
Well, you've not been listening. Much of what I have said countless times, I'm fully support of his stance, buy America, build America, hire American. I absolutely agree with that. I'm also in agreement with him trying to get life back into the United States. I also in agreement with what a lot of what he'd done in the Ukraine until he took against Zelensky. You cannot say that I've continually knocked Trump because you simply have not been listening, Paul.
No, well, you're not listening to yourself, Mick, because as it stands, you're just bashing Trump, Vance, and constantly. You've not said one good thing about them two people. All they want to do is bring peace.
You weren't listening in the first hour when I said that Zelensky's U-turn is another victory for Trump. I said that in the first hour, Paul.
Yeah, well, okay. Well, I missed that bit then. Okay, I apologise.
Right. No, you don't have to apologise, but I am pointing.
Stop making it about the British Army when he hasn't said a thing about the British Army.
First of all, JD Vance needs a bit of a history lessons, but I think he was referring to the most of Europe, not just this country as well.
Right. Okay.
Right now, going back to 2016. A news conference in the Foreign Office between David Cameron and Obama, right? Yes. Telling us how we should vote for the upcoming Brexit, right?
Right.
Obama said, if you vote out...
Oh, yeah, I know where you're going now.
You will have to go to the back of the queue for trading with us, he said.
Yeah.
And I thought, at the time, not one journalist, Nick, this is all your people, got up and said one word, pulled him up on it. Neither did our Prime Minister. Was we at the back of the queue in Afghanistan, Iraq, Second World War, was we at the back of the queue? No. And that was Obama. But all the liberals in this country thought, a wonderful man, he is a saint, Obama, as he can't do nothing wrong or say anything wrong. I thought, to me, that was one of the worst things I've ever heard from an American president.
Well, what about what you heard yesterday from an American vice president, lastly, John?
I'd ask him, go and have a little history lesson.
I thought it was outrageous, really. You know, I was quite impressed that Trump had picked a former US Marine as his running partner and ended up being a vice president. But after his display on Friday in the Oval Office, and then obviously coming out with the comments he made this morning,
it
was pretty disgraceful, really. During Iraq, there was over 140,000 British troops deployed during the operation, and 46,000 on the initial deployment, of which I served in Iraq in 2003.
Did you?
And,
right. Okay.
Alongside our American counterparts, we actually served with a 15 Brigade Marine Expeditionary Force.
Right.
So for him to say that the UK is, never been involved in said wars, again in Afghanistan, 150,000 troops, some 13,500 at any one point, I believe. And then obviously the 457 dead in Afghanistan and 179 dead in Iraq is, to say that we're kind of a two-bit country. It's clearly evident that it's being talked about that we're going to put peacekeeping troops out potentially in Ukraine. So clearly he didn't name us per se, but he was obviously referring to us.
How well trained are US military personnel, Craig?
There's always been that banter that the Americans have got all the gear and no idea. It's kind of a standing joke between the Brits and the US.
Well, you've been brave enough to serve. Would you, having seen them up close and personal, would you say it's about right?
Like all armies, you get good and bad. And I'm sure they have, many professionals the same as the UK, and they probably have those who probably not fit to wear the uniform the same as what we do. But we've served alongside our American counterparts for a very long time, and everybody knew we served in Iraq and Afghanistan and various other theatres. Know that the Brits was probably the second largest force, the next largest force outside of from the US. And we, and Trump's actually got his personal bodyguard is a former UK Special Forces guy. So for
Is that right?
for Vance to kind of say that we don't know what we're doing and one thing or another is outrageous, really.
Lastly, if one of your children or a nephew or niece was to say, "I want to go into the army," having served, Craig, what would you say?
I was injured in Afghanistan. I ended up losing a leg in an IED blast.
Oh,
and
sorry.
My daughter's 14, and I still would encourage her to join the services, despite what happened to me. I was
Why?
fortunate. I was one of the lucky ones that survived, and you go to war, things happen. But hopefully, we're not always at war. So. But it's a great career, I'd do it all again. So.
I was going to ask you, and I'm very sorry you sustained that level of injury, but why would you advocate it to your daughter, having lost your leg serving?
It's just such a professional organisation, it offers you a great outlook, a great career, a great life and opportunity, and you can, once you've served, you've still got plenty of time to add all your skills that you've learned in the military into civilian life.
And what is it you do now, sir?
I'm a work in construction.
Right.
I'm a project manager in construction.